Jack and the Beanstalk. The morning sun barely touched the valley, but the pantry was already empty. Jack looked at Daisy, their last friend and only hope. His mother's voice was a soft, breaking whisper as she gave the order. They couldn't eat memories anymore. With a heavy heart and a gentle tug on the rope, Jack began the long walk toward the market. The path to the market felt longer than usual today. Every step was a reminder of what they were losing. Suddenly, the air turned cool and smelled of wild jasmine. A strange man stood under the shadow of a great oak, his eyes twinkling like stars caught in the daylight. He didn't want gold. He wanted to offer a different kind of future. Jack's excitement vanished the moment he saw his mother's face. To him, the beans were a promise of magic. To her, they were a death sentence. Her anger was born of fear and a hungry stomach. In a flash of desperation, she grabbed the beans and flung them through the open window, leaving the room in a cold, heavy silence. Sleep wouldn't come to Jack that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother's tears. He felt like a failure, a boy who had traded their lives for a handful of glowing seeds. But as the moon reached its peak, a low vibration hummed through the floorboards. Outside, the earth began to move, shifting under a power long forgotten. The morning light revealed a miracle. A beanstalk as wide as a house spiraled into the sky, its leaves like emerald platforms. It pierced through the morning mist, disappearing into a sea of white clouds. Jack didn't hesitate. There was no food in the house, but there was a ladder to the heavens, and he intended to climb it. The air grew thin and sweet as Jack climbed higher than any bird had ever flown. Below him, his village was nothing more than a speck of dust. Above, the clouds flattened into a solid, glowing floor. He pulled himself over the final edge and gasped. A kingdom of stone and wind awaited him, anchored by a fortress of impossible proportions. The castle felt like a mountain hollowed out by a god. Every footstep Jack took echoed like a drumbeat against the polished marble floors. The air smelled of roasted meat and old iron. He felt like an ant in a world of giants, hiding in the deep shadows cast by furniture that reached toward the vaulted ceiling. The thuds grew louder, shaking the very foundation of the castle. Then came the voice, a roar that vibrated in Jack's bones. Silas the giant entered the room, his footsteps sounding like falling boulders. He didn't see the boy, but he caught a scent on the air that didn't belong in his lonely, cold kingdom. The giant sat heavily, the chair groaning under his weight. He didn't eat with joy, but with a silent, heavy greed. Once his belly was full, he cleared the table with a sweep of his hand and pulled out two treasures: a small, shivering hen and a harp made of light. This was the source of the giant's power and his pride. Jack watched in silence as the giant leaned back, his massive chest rising and falling. With a grunt, Silas pointed a thick finger at the hen. The bird let out a soft, melodic cluck, and beneath her, a perfect egg of solid gold appeared. It was enough wealth to feed Jack's village for a lifetime, yet here it was, just a toy for a lonely monster. Then the giant whispered a command to the harp. Aria's strings began to vibrate without a hand touching them, sending a wave of peace through the room. The music was heavy with ancient magic, designed to bring sleep even to the most restless heart. Jack felt his own eyelids grow heavy, but he bit his lip to stay awake. This was the moment. The giant's snores were like thunderclaps, masking the sound of Jack's footsteps. He crept toward the hen and the harp, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wasn't just taking gold, he was taking back the life his mother deserved. But as he reached out, the air seemed to shimmer with the harp's awareness. As Jack's fingers closed around the harp's frame, a sudden chill ran down his spine. The magic within the instrument was alive and fiercely loyal to its master's safety. Before Jack could take a single step toward the door, the strings flared with a brilliant, blinding light. The peaceful lullaby twisted into a sharp alarm that shattered the silence of the hall. The giant's eyes snapped open, glowing like molten gold in the shadows. With a roar that cracked the stone pillars, Silas surged to his feet, overturning the massive table. Jack didn't look back. He ran with the desperation of a cornered rabbit, his boots skidding on the cold floor as the heavy thuds of the giant's pursuit began to shake the castle. He reached the edge of the clouds just as the giant burst from the castle gates, his shadow looming over the horizon. There was no time for fear, only for action. Jack threw his legs over the side of the beanstalk and began to slide and climb down the thick vines. Above him, the very sky seemed to tremble under the giant's weight. The wind whipped past Jack's ears as he descended through the thickest clouds. Above him, the beanstalk groaned under a terrifying weight. Silas was coming down, his massive boots crushing the emerald leaves with every step. The entire structure swayed like a mast in a storm. Jack looked down, seeing the tiny roof of his cottage still miles away. As the ground rushed up to meet him, Jack saw his mother standing in the garden, her face pale with terror. Behind him, the giant's roar echoed through the valley, a sound so loud it shattered the cottage windows. Jack hit the grass with a roll, the harp's strings humming a frantic, dissonant tune of warning. There was no time for explanations. Jack grabbed the wood-cutting axe from the stump, the weight of it familiar and heavy in his hands. With a primal shout, he swung at the base of the magical vine. The giant was only yards away now, his hand reaching out to crush the boy who had stolen his lonely treasures. With one final desperate blow, the beanstalk snapped. A sound like 1,000 breaking trees filled the valley as the great vine listed toward the horizon. Silas let out a final haunting cry that was swallowed by the wind. The giant and the beanstalk fell together, crashing into the distant mountains, leaving only a trail of stardust and silence behind. The hunger was gone, replaced by the warm glow of the golden eggs and the sweet, peaceful songs of the harp. But as Jack watched the sunset, he realized the greatest treasure wasn't the gold. It was the home they had saved together. The garden grew once more, simple and green, a quiet reminder of the day a boy touched the sky.